At this time, we're joined by Sporting Kansas City co-principal owner Michael Illig. We'll start off with opening remarks before opening it up for questions from the media.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Today is a significant moment in the life of Sporting Kansas City. Since our group acquired the team in 2006, Peter Vermees has been a part of our DNA. He started as a consultant, then became a technical director, then interim coach, and has served as our head coach and sporting director since 2010. His fingerprints are on every era of this club's modern identity. After a series of honest and thoughtful conversations, with the final one occurring Sunday evening, Peter and I mutually agreed it was time for a new chapter for both him and for the club. This is not an easy decision. It comes with deep respect and immense gratitude and full acknowledgement of everything he's given us over the last 20 years. Peter is the only head coach this version of Sporting Kansas City has ever known. He's a builder, he's a competitor, and a leader who helped shape our culture from the ground up, from lifting trophies and raising standards. I want to sincerely thank Peter for his loyalty, his vision, and the passion he brought to this club every single day. We wish him nothing but success in whatever comes next. But now, as we turn the page, our focus is on the future. We remain committed to the values that define Sporting: excellence, innovation, and ambition. We will build on the foundation Peter helped create and pursue the next chapter with clarity, energy, and purpose. With that, I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
We do have two wireless microphones here in the room that we'll use for questions from the media. We'd ask that media members please identify themselves and their media outlet prior to the question.
Danny Clinkscale from DannyClinkscale.com. The team sort of entered a completely new phase entering this season with a lot of turnover in the roster and everything. What was the idea behind making a change so soon in this complete turnover and change in the roster?
I mean, I think you could still have change and success at the same. Both things can happen at the same time, and that was certainly our expectation. In the offseason, there were difficult conversations had, and I think from ownership we demonstrated that we were willing to do what it took to make the team better. We did that, but the results didn't come with that as well.
Mike Vahe, Gregorian, Kansas City Star. I know you have clarity about the decision, but I wonder if you could just speak to the emotional difficulty that may have come with it and just how strange it must feel to not have Peter be part of things today.
Yeah, I mean, it's on a personal level, one of the hardest things I've ever done. I think, yeah, it was brutal. It was a heavy moment. But, I mean, if over the last 20 years, if Peter knew anything, it was a standard and expectation. So although in the moment it was difficult and a hard conversation, it was understood why it was being had.
And just in a little bigger picture sense, I guess, the through line of him with soccer in Kansas City in general, I wonder if you just might speak to what that legacy is in terms of all that's happened in terms of soccer and Sporting and World Cup, all that.
I mean, I think his legacy speaks for itself. I mean, he has been such a critical component as a player, as a coach, and just as a personality. I mean, he defines the sport in this town, and for the most part, our league as well. I mean, he is synonymous with certainly Sporting Kansas City, but in many respects, our league. It's unheard of to have the run he did and the positions he did, and not be a stalwart in the sport in our country.
Like Blair Kirchhoff with the Kansas City Star, to what extent was a coaching change considered at the end of last season, before this season got going?
There wasn't a consideration for that. It was a full belief in Peter and Mike and the team to show what we could do to, I mean, obviously there's having Mike Burns come into the mix, watching him and Peter work together. It was pretty cool to see that dynamic work, and I think that we've collectively demonstrated that that we've made good changes that were suitable for the results that we expect season in every season.
And it may sound obvious, but what are the expectations going forward?
I mean, for the remainder of this season and the decision being made now, there's still a lot of season left. I think, in the conversation with the guys yesterday, they believe in themselves. They believe in their talents. It's obviously going to take, everyone has talent in this league. Any professional athlete, every team has talent. So it's what you have inside of yourself that defines you to be better than most. So I think our guys they're ready for the challenge. I mean, it's kind of the way we phrased it is it's a new season begins today. And if you saw the training today, that energy was there.
How much of an impact was it that the first couple of home games, their crowds were significantly below capacity, which has been very unusual?
Yeah, I mean, I think our fans are no different than any other fans. If you don't put a product out there that they want to come see, then they're not going to show up. I mean, we've never really faced that until I think it was 2019. And we saw our fans are no different than any other fans in sports when it comes to wanting to watch a winner. So lately there hasn't been much to want to show up for. There's a lot of narrative there, but you gotta see it and deliver for them to want to show up. So I guess to answer your question, it's not it's unfortunate. It's part of the business, but the amount of fans in the seats was not the driving factor here.
Thad Bell of the KC Soccer Journal. To follow up on that, how much did maybe the supporter group's letter that came out right shortly before the move, how did that play into it?
So I wasn't aware of I was aware that there was a letter. I did not consume the letter until yesterday morning, and obviously I had the conversation with Peter on Sunday evening. So it was not a factor, and it wasn't a driving force in this decision. But I certainly understand the sentiment.
And then what are the next steps? The director of soccer operations is open, the coaching position is open. What are those next steps? Which do you fill and how quickly?
We're not quite defending the Alamo here, but we're close in regards to a lot of open positions. Obviously, Kerry is at the helm as interim head coach. And then, that's a position that I think I've done 4 deals with Kerry now. It's always been understood between he and I that if anything ever happened to Peter, he would get a chance at the interim job. That being said, he understands that we're going to run a search, global search, alongside him. He'll be thrown in the mix there. I've told him it's his job to lose, but we've never been in this situation before. Peter's all we've ever known. We've been in the business for 20 years, and here we are with our first head coaching change. So I'm learning through this process. I'm going to take my time, get it right, and I want to see what's out there. I mean, in the last 24 hours, I've been inundated with amazing candidates and agents and whatever wanting us to look at their guys. So I'm looking forward to running the process.
Mike, it's really just a follow-up to that point. How do you create a process when you haven't really had the opportunity or occasion to do this before? I mean, when you conduct a global search, what's the mechanism?
We need help. So we've engaged with a search firm, 2 to be exact. Both serve different purposes. But we'll start with them and meeting with them to identify our strategic objectives. And then, they'll field all the incoming we're getting currently and, narrow it down to a, still an exhaustive list of candidates that will come through.
As an ownership group, what is at the top of the list of priorities of what you're looking for in the next person?
It's a good question. We're still figuring that out, right? I mean, it's not, Peter was under contract through 2028, and it was always our expectation that he would see that through. So when it comes to, defining that role and position, I can't sit here today, 24 hours after, and tell you that we have it all figured out. We're going to need to take a deep dive and get to work on that. So the short answer is I don't know, but I trusted ourselves that we'll figure that out.
Are there any additional questions here in the room? We do have one in the back.
I know earlier you mentioned you kind of defend the Alamo mentality. Is this a little bit of a situation that you guys might see as a quick fix?
Sorry, the quick fix being,
Just here in Sporting Kansas City, just with the team turning around. You said there's still a lot of season left this year and all that.
yeah, I mean, the making the decision now affords you an opportunity to make something of the season. You know, if you want to start, if you want something to change, you got to start with different. So this is kind of the first step in that. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Mike, I'm curious, do you have a timeline in mind of when you'd like to make this permanent hire?
No is the short answer, and I think it's unfair to us in the process to, you know, I have no idea what the process looks like, right? I mean, if I do not have a timeline, right? We're not, you know, in an off season here with a finite window to begin a season or a preseason or anything like that. We have a long timeline to look ahead. A very capable guy, and Kerry. You know, I mean, Kerry's. You know, we have Chet North, who's been with the organization since '96. Kerry, second, I think, at 25 years, and Peter was third. So Kerry's as much of a part of the fabric of our club as Peter was.
So you're going to have search firms working with you on the next hire. What makes this job so attractive?
I mean, you know, you're asking me to pat ourselves on the back a little bit. Obviously, we've demonstrated that we can win. I think our fans are one of the most important aspects of this club. Any player that comes here always touts our you know, the facilities, the stadium, the culture of the club, and most importantly, it's the fans and the supporters group that makes it you know, an intimidating place to play. So I think yeah, I mean, it's a collection of everything that we have been. I mean, we're getting bombarded right now, which is it's a good humbling thing. So I think that. Yep.
I just want to follow up on a question I had earlier, just to clarify for myself. Are you looking for two people for the director of soccer operations and a head coach? Or are you looking for one person in that to maybe, do you know what you're trying to fill there exactly?
Yes. I mean, I think you're asking, I mean, Peter was a unicorn in that he literally had his hand in every single aspect of what we call the sporting player enterprise. So, you know, it's going to take a little while to unravel that. And I don't think I mean, as a unicorn, it's unrealistic to look for someone to do the all-encompassing job. So, yeah, it's going to be a division of responsibilities there.
And you speak of, you know, Peter having the fingerprint, the DNA throughout the entire organization. Did that make it harder to make that move? If he had not been around for so long, would it have been an easier move, you know, in another season where there was not as much success?
No, I mean, there's no minutia involved in regards to the decision other than results. I mean, that's what we care about is consistent results. So, no.
At this time, we're going to open it up to questions submitted via Zoom. First question will go to Jeff Carlisle with ESPN. Jeff, your line is open.
Thanks very much. Hi, Mike. You mentioned earlier how Peter basically was the final decision maker on anything that happened on the technical side. Is this kind of Mike Burns' show to run for the moment? I mean, is he going to be a candidate for that director of soccer role? I mean, where do you see that happening, or how do you see that unfolding as you move forward with this?
Yeah. So, and just to be clear on the division of responsibilities as it was, you know, we brought Mike in to sit alongside Peter, but left it with Peter as, you know, as the CEO of the sporting player enterprise, the decision maker, kind of the chief strategy guy. Obviously, with him being gone, you know, most, if not all of that, is going to fall into Mike.
Our next question will go to Tom Bogert with Give Me Sport. Tom, your line is open.
Thanks for taking the time. I have a couple questions if you don't mind, but I'll start with, obviously Peter has been responsible for so much good at this club, and he has been here so long that his hands are on all of these details. So how does the club transition to a next phase, and how do you want to transition to like a post Peter Vermees phase?
I mean, I think, it's a great question. I don't know if I have all the answers to that, but I'll try and give you something here. But, I mean, everybody's going to have to step up in a way that, they probably weren't used to, because Peter was such a integral part of everything. I mean, he literally had his fingers in all the way down to, the youth academies. So, I mean, we have very capable people here, not that they needed Peter to, be involved every day. They appreciated him being involved every day because he cared and he added value. But at the end of the day, these people are very capable and can stand on their own themselves. So they need to rise to the occasion and be who they are. And I believe in them to do that.
Well, and one more, if you don't mind. So you said that, Kerry is as much as the part of the fabric of this club as Peter, how long he's been and how important he has been as well. You were saying, obviously, earlier that if you want to make a change, something has to be different. I guess in some sense, is there any worry about how this might land with fans when you say it's Kerry's job to lose, of like, all right, well, how much different can this be?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think, and I've over the years spoken with Kerry a lot about the hypothetical of what it would look like, him as an assistant versus him as the guy in the shot caller. I think that's up for him to prove, and I think you will see a different version of Kerry than you're used to, as an assistant role. But you are right that Kerry's. I mean, he is a part of the institution, but he's a great leader. He carries immense respect amongst the group. And I think, it's not a rinse and repeat with the Peter way. It's up to him to create his own identity for how he wants the culture of the club and the team to exist.
Our next question will go to Carlos Chicas in Arkansas. Carlos, your line is open.
Hey, Michael, Carlos Chicas with Nuestra Visión in Arkansas. You mentioned earlier about, the fans are not attending as you wish, and it comes back to putting a good product on the field. And with Kerry coming in, do you see any changes on the style of play or model of play versus what Peter had? And the second question will be, if it was up to you, if there's a coach up there that you really want to say, you know what, this is the replacement for Sporting KC?
First question, I think, over the years we've done a pretty good job of remaining consistent with an identity on the field. So I don't think that's going to change much. I do think you'll probably see some, tactical changes. Again, I'm a soccer guy, but I'm not that kind of soccer guy. So you're going to have to ask Kerry what he needs to see or what he's going to do tactically, formationally, et cetera. I do give direction in what I want to see, and possessing the ball, attractive soccer. So I do expect that. And when it comes to the tactics, you're going to ask Kerry. The second question, sorry, was what?
If there was a coach that you had identified as being a
No,
target.
I mean, I've never remotely had that thought, so no.
Our next question will go back to Jeff Carlisle with ESPN. Jeff, your line is open.
Thanks. Mike, in preseason, Peter gave an interview to SiriusXM where he said, and I quote, "The fact that we haven't invested in players for a long time at the club has kept us a little stale," unquote. And I was wondering, how is it that it got to that point where the club wasn't investing in players, or at least to the level that maybe Peter wanted?
It's a good question. I think, I never really had a conversation with Peter about that quote. And I would challenge that we haven't invested. And I will say that, if and when Peter ever asked for something, he pretty much got it. And in that moment, I don't know if it was, he meant that in the lack of ownership commitment or willingness to spend, rather than being able to find the right guys for the team. And obviously there was a long period in which we were running a search for a sporting director that landed on Mike Burns. I think when Mike Burns came in, there was obviously an assimilation period. And then once he got to work, you see the results of what's happened. We've added quality talent in the team that came with significant investment.
Just we've seen how the fans have been, and the questions and stuff. What do you say now to them? What would you say to the fans to say, give us a chance, come back, support these guys? What would you say to them?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think if the sentiment was, against Peter or whatever, I mean, listen, I understand not winning it's horrible. It's not fun. It's a terrible feeling, and you don't want to support that. But we're turning the page on a new chapter. The new season starts now. I would encourage him to come out Saturday against St. Louis, our biggest rival, pack the house, be loud, support Kerry. He needs it. Support the guys. They need it. I mean, it's, for the Cauldron specifically, it's the heartbeat of the stadium and the team. When they're full and loud, you see the difference in the guys. And when they're not, they're kind of flat a little bit. So I would encourage them to come support.
Mike, I know you have identified, obviously, that the losing was it, but I mean, was there a moment that was the critical mass where it was like, okay, that's it? Is there anything you can really point to as like, that's it?
No, I mean, listen, Peter and I, we talk, if not every day, almost every day. When things are bad, neutral or great, we're talking, and we're always trying to get better. So, there's I had a conversation with him on Wednesday. It was pretty direct. It wasn't, hey, you need to win. It was a must win on Saturday, but it was pretty close. But I mean, listen, there's zero confusion on what the expectations are.
And this is perhaps more personal than you'd want to get, but I'm going to ask anyway. What's it like to make that phone call when you've decided after all these years? I mean, just to call him and say, this is why I'm calling.
I mean, it's horrible. It's just to have a human moment for us. Like, it was that call. It was 28 seconds. Come to the office at 6 o'clock. I mean, shows up to the office, and it was 18-minute conversation. It was horrible. I mean, it's 20 years of friendship, of professional, of the highs and lows, and certainly never a conversation I ever thought I would have to have. But yeah, it was brutal.
Michael, thank you very much for the time today.